Here we go. We're going. All right. Welcome everybody to the Tuesday evening screencast video coaching call. My name's Naylor, and I'll be your host tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about the new version of Camtasia that will be coming out. Some of the new stuff that's going on over at TechSmith. Those folks over there been working on the next version of Camtasia for, well, pretty typically coming up on their 2-year product cycle. So what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to get out of Camtasia 9 real quick, and I'm going to go through some slides here, and then we'll jump into Camtasia 2018 and see what it's all about, see what's happening. Right? So Camtasia 2018 is kind of happening. This is going to be my first reveal. It's the first time I can kind of talk about stuff. I've been working with the beta since April 20th. There are non-disclosure agreements in place, of course, and all of that good stuff. So I haven't been able to really say anything about anything. But TechSmith has done a couple of things recently where they've announced the dates and shown some of the features and stuff. So what I'm going to be able to do tonight is to talk in a fairly generic sense without getting into real solid tutorials yet. And the reason for that is, well, I'm still running beta code. To do the proper work and stuff like that, I'm going to have to wait for release code. So that's kind of where we're at. Let me give you just a little bit of an overview as far as Camtasia Studio 2018 goes. And that's basically going to be the name. We're familiar with Camtasia versioning, oh gosh, from version 1 through version 9. And basically what they've done is, I guess, maybe decided to take a little bit of a Microsoft model and label their major updates to the software by year. It is the next major update of Camtasia Studio. Release date is the morning of June 19th, 2018, so it's really kind of just around the corner. And there are some fairly decent and significant under the covers improvements that we'll touch on. And there are some not so big features and UI improvements. In a nutshell, the under the covers stuff kind of rolls like this. Faster rendering. So they've done a lot of work with the render engine, similar to what they did with the upgrade from Camtasia 8 to Camtasia 9. We saw some significant speed and reliability improvements. This time they have apparently focused on the rendering engine. They, of course, haven't released specs or anything like that, and it clearly will depend on your hardware to a large degree. But in general, they state that rendering is approximately 50% faster. Now, that may or may not be a big deal to you. For me, well, I never really worry about rendering time all that much. I have a pretty fast machine, and it's rare, even editing these hour-long webinars, and I edit the heck out of a lot of them. You know, it takes, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 minutes to render the video. So, but apparently that's something they felt that was really kind of needing and wanting to be done. So faster rendering is something we won't really notice as far as how the program looks and feels. So it's an under the covers kind of a deal. Another thing that was constantly requested by lots of users is support for 60 frames per second video editing and producing. So 2018 will support 60 FPS editing and producing. This is probably the most compelling for folks that do a lot of camera work, a lot of video camera recording and stuff like that. Again, for me personally, 60 frames per second for the work that I do, which is primarily screencast and PowerPoint video, doesn't really float my boat very much. 60 frames per second, of course, will give you basically more frames of video data And if you are recording at 60 frames per second with your video camera, then essentially things just go smoother. It rolls smoother. Their goal here, I'm sure, was just to kick up the game to come more in compliance with most of the other major video editing programs. Okay, so yeah, that would be something that a lot of people seem to have been interested in, and apparently it's kind of coming into play. I haven't really tested it because I don't record at 60 frames a second, so we'll kind of have to wait to see what the scoop is on that. Under the covers, apparently it will also optimize video card or optimize the use of video card or even multiple video cards if you have them during editing. So again, this is not something that I've been able to test. They haven't released any specifications on it or anything like that. I was just alluded to in some of the conversations that I've seen going on, but I do understand that it is only supported on Windows 8 and above. So I run on Windows 7. I guess we'll have to see what the scoop there is. Supposedly, it will utilize more of the video card hardware during the editing process. My guess is that things like the previews might be smoother, scrubbing hopefully smoother, and things like that. And also a feature that mostly for international folks, there is now a multi-language single install. You don't have to have multiple versions of Camtasia for different languages. So in other words, you can run the install program, select your language, and it will just install the proper language support for you. I believe that in the past you would have to use a German or other language installation package. So now they have a single multi-language install. There you go. Also of interest to a lot of folks, but not me in particular, is again the details aren't completely out, but it's sounding like they've rather moved towards what I call system parity with the Mac platform. Just as one example, the Mac version currently does not have a library function like the Windows version does. So that will be coming out with the Mac. Again, from what I can kind of piece together, and until we see release code, we won't know. You can seamlessly now work on projects on either the Windows platform or the Mac platform. Kind of a big deal to a lot of different folks. If I had to guess, I would say that you can do so with a single license of Camtasia 2018. And that's kind of how it works with Camtasia 9 right now. If you buy Camtasia 9, you can run it. You get a license for both a PC and a Mac. But the problem was that things like the recording files were cross-compatible, but project files, yeah, really not cross-compatible. So we'll kind of wait and see how that plays out. We do have a few Mac folks in the group. In a nutshell, the features and UI that are new to Camtasia 2018, and I'm going to pump through these, and then we'll jump out and fire up the software, and I'll kind of give you a little walk and talk on it. There are some new library features, and I think the biggest part of that is that you can now have multiple libraries, and a feature that I've been asking for forever is to have subfolders in your library. So you can create a folder and then you can create subfolders under it. And we'll take a look at what that kind of looks like and some of the other pieces to that. There are new library assets that come with the new library, mostly just more of kind of the same in the sense that there are some new lower thirds, new motion backgrounds, new music tracks, and some new goodies that are in keeping with regular kinds of library assets. There are some new theme features. They call it theming, and basically it's to allow you to make kind of wholesale changes to a look and feel for things like colors, fonts, and things like that. You can set up different color palettes, I guess would be one of the ways to determine that. And then also set up defaults for fonts, which is kind of nice. So we'll take a look at that. There are a couple of new behaviors included. One is called explode and one is called fly in. And apparently they will be coming out with a new online library assets. So if you're familiar with Camtasia now, there's a couple of places where you can click to get more assets. And it takes you to the TechSmith website where they have all the current things like motion graphics, lower thirds, icons, music, and stuff like that. Well, they've stated that they're going to massively increase that resource, which I've always thought would be a good idea. The more stuff you can give your users that they can use, the more useful your software is. And my understanding is that this will be available for either some kind of additional subscription fee, or maybe it will be available to those under maintenance. We'll kind of have to see what that looks like. There's also something called the Camtasia certification program. We don't really know what that is, but we do know that it will only be available if you purchase the maintenance agreement, which is something that TechSmith currently offers. And it's mostly for corporations and stuff like that that don't want to be faced with steep upgrade costs and stuff for lots and lots of computers. So I'll give you a link to that, and we'll again have to see what's entailed there. But it is a little bit intriguing. We certainly will be checking it out in depth, and I know that it might be of interest to a bunch of folks, maybe like Naomi or Gord or folks like that. So yeah, we'll take a look and see what the scoop there is. Okay, let me jump out of the slides here and let's attempt to kind of fire this puppy up. TechSmith 2018, Camtasia. And I'll just open up a Scratch project that I'm working on. Okay, so the first thing you might notice is, well, you might not notice. And again, I'm going to withhold judgment and reserve any final kinds of recommendations on should I upgrade or should I not upgrade until we get release code. That being said, I'll just touch upon the few things that seemingly are at least different and or new. So the first thing, again, is probably the library. In this version, what you'll notice is that the library now has its own tab here over on the ribbon. It used to be mixed in with media. The media now is purely your clip bin, right? So it's a little cleaner in that respect. If we go to the library, and I'll get us a little bit more real estate here. Basically, it is searchable for one thing, which is kind of nice. And then you can have multiple libraries. So it comes with the default library. And again, we'll take a look at a couple of the new assets that are in here. And then you can create your own custom libraries. So maybe you have assets for a specific project or a specific client, something like that. You can stuff them all into a unique and individual library if you like. Another piece here is that in contrast to Camtasia 9, which basically hosed your Camtasia 8 library in the sense that it didn't import any of it, you can click here and it will detect libraries from previous versions. Now, quite frankly, I haven't done this yet because I'm scared to death that if I do, something might happen to my Camtasia 9 library. So it gives you this little thingy here, this little pop-up warning. I'm going to choose upgrade later for right now, but it would seem that you have the ability to import your previous Camtasia 9 libraries. Okay, and so, other than that, basically, we're all kind of familiar with folders in the library. So working with any individual library, if I twirl down now, one of the things that's a little bit nice here is that you get a little preview of things, either video clips or still images and things like that. It used to drive me kind of nuts that bokeh dots, what does that look like again? And you have to go ahead and preview it. This is kind of a no-brainer addition, I think. It doesn't preview video like in the thumbnail, but I mean, that's kind of okay. At least I still get an idea of what the scoop is. So, new items. Well, let's just go back to the animated backgrounds. What you'll find is that some of the things are from Camtasia 9, like the bokeh dots and floating boxes, but there are some new ones that are included, and they're really just video backgrounds, animated backgrounds. Icons, here's where the subfolders kind of come in handy, and audio is another good example. But you can subcategorize, and I don't know what the limit is right offhand as to how many subfolders you can build, but you can create a little better structure for organizing. And again, as opposed to wondering what the heck house-02 is, you get the preview, which is kind of nice. So really kind of a fan of that type of a thing. Let's take a look at some of the other assets here. Let's go to lower thirds, and I'm going to pick one. I'll pick one of the new ones. I'll click it here. This is called crossing, and I'll go ahead and I'll just put it on the timeline. Okay, and let's preview it real quick. Okay, so it's a nice little lower third. Here's kind of my problem with it, and it's not really a problem other than we have created some library assets, as you may know, called CAM libraries, and our stuff is specifically designed to be as useful and flexible as possible. Here's an example of what I don't like about a pre-canned asset like this. Let's open up the group real quick, and what you'll see is that, and I'll scrub through here. Okay, it comes in. Nice, I like it. It's a good looking deal, and it also uses the quick properties features. So changing like the color is wicked easy, right? And changing the text is wicked easy. You don't even have to get into any of these groups or boxes or anything. So I like that. I can't wait for TechSmith to release the development tool that they use to create these quick properties, the quick property versions of these assets, because I'll be all over that. But here's what I don't like. Okay, so let's kind of look at this. This has a duration of 8 seconds. If I want this to stay on screen longer than 8 seconds, watch what happens. Let's make it last longer. Let's make it last 13 seconds and open up the group again. Well, all of the exit animations, which are right here, stay where they originally were. To make this last longer, you literally have to go in piece by piece, step by step, and try and replicate. Oh gosh, I'm going to undo that because, okay, these two come in at the same time at the end. So I can grab them and I can move them. And then I gotta do this, make these two longer. Oh, I need to make the text, I don't know, how long should that be? It goes out before that. it's just a nightmare to do such a thing. It would be much better if they use things like behaviors to do the exits. Let me delete that for a second. Let's put it on the timeline again. The same holds true if I don't want this to stay on screen for 8 seconds. Let's make it last 5 seconds and open up the group. And lo and behold, all of my exit animations are cut off and hosed. So, yeah, I like a lot more new assets, but I really would like them to be more easily edited and modified, right? So, Naomi mentions labeling of the folders is limited to 50 characters. Sure, that's a good one. Had not tested that. So, that's kind of the library scoop. Again, I like segmenting stuff for music tracks. I could create a subfolder here for different genres, rock or jazz, whatever you want. It just makes it a little bit easier. The one thing that I really would like to see in not just the library, but also the timeline is detachable windows. So if I could take this panel, this library panel, and just tear it off and put it on my other monitor, then I could alleviate a whole bunch of scrolling around and stuff. This is as much of the library as I can see at any given crack without kind of scrolling up and down. And granted, I'm at a rather low screen resolution, but this is easy for me to see, so this is what I run at. Right? So that kind of thing. What would really be helpful is if I could detach the timeline, right? And get that off on another monitor and really just kind of go almost full screen with my timeline and maybe have a preview window, which you can detach. So I can detach the canvas, but sadly, as I move that out of the way, it doesn't buy me anything other than, a bigger preview on the other screen. In other words, I can't, make use of any of the hole or anything that it made. So anyway, that's just kind of a side rant. I think it's a useful feature to have the new library stuff. Is it earth-shattering? I don't think it's incredibly earth-shattering, but well, let's press onwards here, and I'll tell you what's not new. Almost anything else. There are no new callouts of any kind. There are no new transitions that I've been able to detect. There are no new improvements to any of the pre-canned animations, cursor effects, voice narration, no new audio effects, no new visual effects. The visual effects pretty much work the same unless they make some changes again in release versions and all that good stuff. So maybe suspiciously absent are an opportunity, I would say, to beef up these kinds of assets, things that we can use. Now, that being said, they do provide this thing called theming. So let's just add an asset to the timeline. And what you'll notice is that now under your annotations properties, you have the ability to select a theme. And themes are basically, let's go to manage themes. Themes are basically colors and fonts. Okay, so if you think about it, that kind of makes sense. A theme would be like kinds of assets in terms of things like colors and or fonts. So you can kind of pick and choose and create your own. You can create a new theme. That's basically what it is. So now, if I want to change the color, and this is one thing that I hope they fix in the release version. Normally, in Camtasia 9, when you go to select a color, you get a lot more, and maybe even more importantly, different options than these colors right here. I would like to see the default color theme be the same as it was in Camtasia 9. So hopefully they'll get that taken care of. So you can change colors and stuff like that, but you can also change them based on your theme. So I could change this to my test theme, and then here is the palette of all the colors that I've configured for my custom theme, right? Yeah, I guess that's pretty nice. You can also do it across multiple assets. So I don't know, let's just drag a couple more down here. And I'll actually put them on top so we can stack and see. So if I make multiple selections across the timeline of different kinds of assets, and again, these wouldn't normally be stacked on top of each other, it's just for demo purposes. So I can select them all, or even hold my control key and select other assets and stuff like that anywhere on the timeline I want, and then basically just change the theme, and it basically should change pretty much everything, right? So it changed the font color, and the color of the call out. I guess kind of handy, useful, maybe, sorta, kinda. I'd be interested to see what you guys think on that. So yeah, I mean, you can create different, essentially, I guess what I call them is different palettes. And certainly, if you are branding your own videos and things like that, then that would be kind of a handy, useful thing. Yeah, Naomi thinks that's major useful, and I know she thinks it's useful because she has done tutorials on how to create your own color palettes and stuff like that to save time. Let's see, what else do we have? As far as, let's go to behaviors. Again, I'm hoping that they'll add more in the release, because behaviors are some of the most handy things that Camtasia 9 provided. You can do some really awesome stuff using behaviors. Well, they added two. They added a new one called Explode, which works best for text, and they added kind of a handy dandy one that is standard in most video applications called Fly In, and it also flies out. So if we kind of take a look at that on the timeline, I'll just let this roll for a second. Fly in, fly out, explode, boom. Yep. So there you go. You got a couple of new handy dandy things. Let's take a look at maybe some of the properties here real quick. So fly in is now available on the behavior properties. So if I had a different behavior there, I could change it to a fly in. But probably a little more interesting is that now, let's go to the explode one. And if I didn't want it to explode out, I could, of course, on the out property here, then choose fly out. So I kind of like the fly out. There are, I don't know, just a couple of other little things, like the play bar here now. In addition to the timeline time and total time, there also is a little indicator as to what your frame rate is for the project. So there's that. And let's see, also on project settings, you can now set defaults for the frame rate. In fact, if you go to Edit Preferences, you can go to the Advanced tab, no, not the Advanced tab, Canvas, and set defaults for your project. So if you open up a new project, you can also have it ask you if you want to use higher frame rates and stuff like that. But so that's, I don't know, just a little bit new. Also, you'll get this kind of warning now when you drag and drop media from anything other than one of your internal computer hard drives. I haven't turned this off, but basically they're just saying that if you use media from a USB drive, or in my case, any externally connected drives, then they recommend that you move them to your internal drive. I don't know. Certainly, it can have a performance impact, but for the most part, I don't worry too much about that. And I think that's pretty much all I had on this for the time being. I'll spend a little bit of time and rack through some questions here. Increased hardware demands, asked Larry. I haven't done a complete comparison, but they do have the system requirements, and you can't get to this page yet, but it will be there at release. It seems kind of the same to me, but I don't think you necessarily need to upgrade hardware. However, anytime you upgrade hardware, especially things like your video card or swap out a regular hard drive for a solid state drive, all those things play into performance to pretty good degrees. So my basic take is that it's pretty much the same as Camtasia 9. Naomi says, and Naomi, I think this is in reference to importing your library. Don't do it. If people are going to want to operate 9.1 and 2018 for a while, it's better to export their libraries than import them into 2018. That probably makes a bunch of sense to me. That's kind of what I did for one of the custom libraries that I created here. These are all, I mentioned, are CAM libraries. So this is CAM Libraries Volume 1. And all I did was export it from Camtasia 9 and then imported it into Camtasia 2018, and looks like it all went pretty well. It did the thumbnails for me, all that good stuff. And the way the beta works is, I assume this is probably going to be the case for the release. You can run Camtasia 2018 on the same machine as you have Camtasia 9 installed on. The only thing is that if you install 2018, it seems like it makes that the default version of Camtasia. And if you double click a project file in like Windows Explorer, it's going to open it up in 2018. The secret sauce to that is that the file formats are not backward compatible with Camtasia 9. So it's kind of the same as it was with Camtasia 8 to Camtasia 9. It will create a backup copy for you and all that good stuff, but if you create a project in 2018 or open up an earlier version and convert it to 2018, which it does automatically, you cannot open that project file up in Camtasia 9. So the recommendation is, if you're going to open up projects that you already have in Camtasia 9, to make a copy of those first. And you can just, like in Windows Explorer, make a copy. It will make one automatically, but I typically will open it up in Camtasia 9 and save as a different version. But you could just copy paste it. I like to do the other way just to be sure. There are issues with MOV files in 2018. Regular MOVs from a camera, they will freeze up the system and take minutes to load. TechSmith is looking at it. So right now she's converting MOVs, and she's not talking about ones with transparency. I've tested MOVs with PNG transparency, and it seems to work fine. Pricing info yet? Oh yeah. It's $99 to upgrade from any previous version of Camtasia to Camtasia 2018. Actually, it's, what is it, $99.50. If you have purchased Camtasia in the last 30 days, then you will get an email that gives you a free upgrade. So there's that little bit of grandfathering, and also if you are under maintenance, you will get the upgrade for free. Here is the 6-minute and 30-second TechSmith reveal that they did. So I'll go ahead and put this in the chat box so you can take a look at that. Are there things in 9.1 that are not available in 2018? that you would suggest keeping both 9.1 and 2018, asked Larry. Let me think about that. I was fairly mindful as I went through my testing of that concern, being that when Camtasia 9 came out, there was stuff that was just flat out gone from Camtasia 8. And it was really kind of a pain in the butt. I didn't really notice anything that was removed as far as functionality. Yeah, I didn't find anything that wasn't there, which is, gosh, that's refreshing. It's all kinds of refreshing. So that's the pricing info. Okay, I'll tell you what, like I say, I'll have more of a final verdict once release code is out. But I don't know. I think my basic take is that of all the major upgrades I've seen from TechSmith, I'm not really overwhelmed and or blown away with this yet. So it remains to be seen for me. So I'll just leave it at that for the moment. Thanks for coming, and I will see you all next time.